This is the first containment from the movie, which originally in the screenplay was just described as the first, second, and third containments were just basically a series of blast doors that you had to open to kind of get to the third containment, which contained the black hole. But I changed it while we were designing the movie, partly because of something I'd done as a kid. I'd gone on the Universal tour, and I'd gone on I think it was the $6 Million Man tour at the moment, which no longer exists. And the tram stopped in this revolving tunnel, and which completely messed up your equilibrium. And I thought it would be interesting to kind of put that on screen. There's a lot of that kind of stuff in the movie, the pullback from the daylight station, the first containment. The camera was rotating, all the sets were rotating a lot to try and disorient the audience. And what we're looking at here is, this is the sequence where the fireball that Edmund Corrick shoots chases Fishburne down the first containment. And the way we did this was obviously to shoot Fishburne, and what we have tracking behind him is a very bright light pushed on the dolly, as you can see. And then we did a separate element, which is the flame. We did a full-scale flame like this, and also we did a third-scale flame, which was a much bigger blast in a miniature of the tunnel that we shot. And then we composited them together. The light is there so that Fishburne kind of looks like he has like the glow of a fireball behind him, to kind of make sure that the interaction of the light is correct so that he fits onto the flame element. That kind of interacting is very, very important. If you don't shoot it live action, you can fake it digitally, but it never looks that convincing. This is behind-the-scenes footage of the scene where the crew are discussing the visions that they've seen. This is just a bit of the actors working together. We had a really good camaraderie between all of these actors. You know, we have Sean Pertwee and Jason Isaacs here, who are really fine British actors, working with Sam and Laurence. And you can see that the scene is going to be shot with a circular track that goes around the circular desks here. That was something in the production design of the movie that I was very adamant about. I knew I was going to do a lot of rotation in the movie, either the rotation of the camera, rotation of the image. There's a kind of circularity to the plot as well, and the whole nature of the, the circularity of the black hole. And it was something that was reflected in the screenplay that I wanted to very much put into the image of the movie and the way that I shot the movie. That's why all these sets were built in this way. And ultimately, when you see this scene, you see that the whole scene is covered by a series of shots rotating either one way or another way around the actors. The crew, of course, hated it because, as you can see, it's pretty difficult. Originally, everything that was on board the Event Horizon was going to take place in zero gravity, which, as you can see, the lengths we went to just to shoot the small amount of zero gravity work we had. If we kept that in the script, that original concept, I think we'd still be shooting the movie right now, because the zero gravity work was incredibly difficult to achieve. Because really I wanted to do as much practical as possible. I didn't want to have people just standing on the ground and then try and fake zero gravity, so we built sets upside down, as this set is. We hung the actors upside down, which was incredibly uncomfortable for them. The rigs were very difficult to build, but I think the end result was we had a very, I think a very convincing attempt at portraying zero gravity. We were right after Apollo 13, so really the bar had been lifted because that movie had real zero gravity in it. But because the sets they used were so small, it was a lot easier for them. We still had to do it kind of the old-fashioned way. As you can see here, we're shooting with a VistaVision camera. It's kind of an old-fashioned camera, but what it does is it gives you a much larger negative. And what that allowed me to do was I could then rotate the image in post-production. And that's something we did a lot of in the movie, especially with the zero gravity work. I used unusual angles and I kept the camera moving at all times and rotating wherever possible. So the audience never really got an idea, hopefully, of what was up and what was down. The idea was just to make the camera movement as disorienting as possible. This scene, the reason why we've included the behind-the-scenes footage here is it was actually a real piece of footage that I wanted to find because this scene we'd altered slightly. in the first and second cut of the movie, but ultimately the change didn't make it into the final version of the film, which is where Weir is looking at Justin in the tank, and Justin changes into Weir's wife, and she opens her eyes and she looks at him. And it was a really creepy image. It's a shame we couldn't actually find the footage of it, but I just wanted to talk about it here because it kind of showed Weir's descent into madness a little more clearly. And also the imagery was very nice because Holly, the actress who played Sam's wife, her hair was kind of like, was all suspended in the water, so it had a very kind of Night of the Hunter feel to it. As you can see, I mean, this is kind of good to show how difficult the sets were to shoot in. We built these gorgeous looking sets. Again, you can see the circularity of the sets that I tried to put into all of the sets. But it just made it difficult because it meant that the sets were narrow. The walkways were very uneven. That was something I did deliberately because I hate movies that are set in predominantly sets and they just build them flat on the studio floor. I think it makes it look very fake. So I was very insistent that our sets had to have lots of different levels in them so they didn't feel like sets. But again, you know, the reason why people build sets flat is because it's easier to lay the camera track and easier to track around. And as you can see from this, you know, the camera crew were really working overtime to make up for the fact that I'd kind of constructed very difficult sets to film in. But sets, hopefully, that look more realistic than the easier version would have been. Now, this, I'm sure, is of interest to no one other than my mother, who has already seen it and really enjoyed it. This is my 31st birthday, and which was on set. There's Laurence Fishburne proving that he would eventually become a director, because I'm quite shy, so without his direction I would kind of run off, I think. This was a beautiful birthday card signed by everybody. I guess I'm glad that we've included this because this movie, I think more than any movie I've made, there was a real camaraderie on set. It was an incredibly difficult movie to make in very difficult conditions. These stages were freezing cold. You can see the amount of coats people are wearing. You know, we were shooting in London in the middle of winter in sets that had no heating whatsoever. And really, I think the difficulty of making the movie really bonded everyone together. And it really worked in terms of the actors because the crew of the Lewis and Clark bonded and they became really close friends so that when they start dying in the movie, I think you can feel real emotion. My rather eloquent speech that I give, it was actually something that was inspired by Bob Shea, who runs New Line Cinema. He gave me this great speech when I was making Mortal Kombat. And I'm pleased to inform you that you're now 2 weeks away from the end of principal photography, and so far, you haven't up. So just make sure you don't. He came down to set, and he said, "You're doing great work, kid, just don't up." And I thought those were real words of wisdom, so I thought I'd impart them to my cast and crew here.